Today's Faceoff on Fox Soul. Challengers Quanell X and Big Angry Adams. Ready to go blow by blow on those hot topics. Faceoff on Fox Soul starts right now. In our first round, changing the world, the NFL's first openly trans cheerleader. Up first, here's Charles Big Angry Adams.
You know, Quanell, when I saw this story, I thought, I've got to find out what my favorite transphobe and homophobe thinks about Justine Lindsay. The headline that caught my eye was, Justine Lindsay, NFL's first openly trans cheerleader, is changing the world. I don't think she's changing the world. I think that journalists want to allege that things give more impact to society than they do. And I'll be fair to the critics of Justine Lindsay. With her shaved head, she does look an awful lot like Wesley Snipes, dressed up like a cheerleader. But I do absolutely support this person chasing their dreams, living their life authentically to how they want to, being good enough to obtain a position as a cheerleader. Do I think this is going to go well with most of the traditional viewers of NFL football? Of course not. Do I think it paints a nice portrait of inclusivity? That is probably why she was selected to play, because we're putting inclusivity in front of everything. But is that necessarily a bad thing, right? As America becomes more tolerant to accepting other people living their lives the way they want to live them, isn't that a better America, Quanell? Because I'm betting you say no.
Charles, what I don't like and what I think is dangerous is that the NFL should remember just this year, Budweiser and Bud Light tried something very similar involving a transgender individual, a gay individual, to promote their beer brand, and the brand just plummeted. The bottom fell out of it. In fact, it was so cheap they couldn't even give it away to people. My concern, Charles, is that remember that the audience of the NFL, they will let the owners know what they want to see. The audience speaks, and they're very vocal about what they like and what they want to see, what they don't want to see. The same way we say we want to see certain coaches and don't want to see certain coaches, the audience, the fan base will let you know what they want. But do not lend the appearance, NFL, that you are going to be pushing this down the throats of the fan, because there'll be a backlash against that. Look, I'm all for this transgendered individual living his dreams, pursuing his dreams.
Her dreams,
pursuing her dreams, pursuing her ambitions, her desires, and living her best life. But what I don't want to see is that this is having the appearance of being forced down somebody's throat. Secondly, Charles, my bigger concern is I feel that black women have never been given the credit that they deserve of making many of these NFL cheerleading squads. For generations and decades, black women have always cried out about discriminatory practices against black women wearing their natural hair and being who they are, not being invited to even join many of these major NFL franchise cheerleading squads. So to this very day, America is still not tolerant enough for African-American real black women to make these cheerleading squads, but yet we're going to pretend like they're so tolerant and inclusive that they won't include a transgender black female or male. I got a problem with that, because black women still have not received the honor that they deserve in making these cheerleading squads.
Okay, but that's absolutely not true. Frankly, you're absolutely right. In fact, your favorite team, Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, famously excluded women of color from their very stereotypical, blonde, tall, thin. But the NFL has made great strides in the last 20 years, and especially in the last 10 years, with raising the pay of cheerleaders, allowing more participation, because they were paid minimum wage for a long time. But at the end of the day, there's enough space, right? There's enough space for inclusivity. This is somebody that's so talented at their job that they overcame barriers. And when you talk about, oh, well, Bud Light, initially, the trans woman that Bud Light decided to use as an influencer is probably the most irritating person I've ever seen on any platform, right? And she also resonates as very inauthentically to me. Her whole social media persona is just, it's like it's like nails on a chalkboard. She's awful. But that doesn't mean that no trans people need to be given a choice, and we shouldn't let bigotry win. That argument could have been made 40 or 50 years ago by restaurants. Well, hey, or hotels or anything. It'd be much more fair to let black people come in there but you know the white people might not like it, so let's not do it.
They still do that today.
Okay, it's been illegal in this country.
But they still do it today, right here in Texas.
So bigotry should be
okay?
okay?
Right here in Texas, in Houston, if you go to certain restaurants and sports bars, right there in the Heights area, they'll let you know what they think about black people. Right here today, they tell black people we have no tables available, and they got plenty of them because they don't want large black number parties coming in the restaurants.
That there is still some racism in America, but that is the exception, not the norm for businesses.
It's the norm for us.
So what you think? No, it's not the norm.
Yes, it is.
I know that lie sells.
Large numbers of black parties are not welcome and accepted in most restaurants.
Okay, again, I know that sells for the cameras.
That's true, Charles. Small individual parties, a couple of black people, you'll be all right. But large numbers of black African Americans going to a restaurant, they're treated not the same level of respect.
Using your logic, if a business, if having large African American parties, if that would impact the business's patronage of other clientele, white clientele, then they should be allowed to turn down black people?
According to certain restaurants in the Heights, they feel that white people do not want to party and dine with large numbers of black people.
But again,
and so that's why they turn them away. Right here in Houston in the Heights area.
Using your math, then it would make it okay for them to turn them away.
I didn't say that. I said this is what they believe because this is what they've been told by their customer base.
Okay.
Charles, let's get back to the transgender cheerleader. Charles,
So she should be turned away.
I didn't say that.
Because
I like real women.
Bigots might not like
I like real women. I'm not a bigot because I want to see a real woman in a cheerleading uniform.
But what you're saying is transphobes
I'm not a bigot that if I want to see a woman in some spandex or a bikini, and I'm looking at her from the back and going, Lord, she fine, and then turn around and it's Wesley Snipes, just a brother? Oh, hell no. I'm not attracted to that. I want to see beautiful women in those cheerleading uniforms.
But that's what you want to see.
Because that's what I'm attracted to.
But that's what you want to see.
But I also believe this, that the overwhelming majority of the football fan base, they want to see that too.
Okay, and I'm not disagreeing with that. But if the Carolina Panthers, when did they stop being the North Carolina Panthers?
They need to win again.
The Carolina Panthers have decided that Justine is so talented, so good at it, that they want to give her a job and allow her to participate. You're saying that bigotry should make them say no.
I didn't say that. Those are words you want to put in my mouth.
No, that's exactly what you said.
I'm no fool.
You made the equivalence with Bud Light.
Let the fan base determine what they want.
Okay. So what you're saying is that hatred should rule the day.
No.
If it's directed at an African American
you got no room for Colin Kaepernick, but you got room for Justine.
I got all kind of love for Kaepernick.
In round two, the push for reparations is front and center. Once again, in America's biggest cities.
TGIF.
Jason Derulo is speaking out against sexual harassment claims.
I sit here before you deeply offended.
Live and interactive.
I agree with Miss Hollywood in the chat. She says he's reading a teleprompter.
Listen, I know bad acting when I see it because I've done it. I'm deeply offended.
I'm going to give you an Angela Bassett deeply offended. And I'm deeply offended.
Oh.
Yeah. Come on, Oscar.
And I'm deeply offended.
Guilty.
On Fox Soul.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanting to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
After several years, Reparations in Chicago is getting new life. Once again, will it happen? And should it? Here's Quanell X.
Charles, the city of Chicago is considering paying reparations to African Americans who are the descendants of America's former slaves. And America's former slave legacy and history, the idea of paying them reparations is now front and center in the city of Chicago. And the mayor's administration has earmarked $500,000 for a panel to research and discuss this to see what they should put forth to the citizens. I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't trust this because I do not believe that the mayor is going about it the right way. I wholeheartedly support reparations for American descendants of our former slaves. It's something that's been on the back of the Nation of Islam's platform and program for almost 100 years now, reparations. But I believe that the way they're going about it is going to cause more of a problem than help fix real problems, what reparations could do. I believe that they should put together the brightest, brilliant minds in Chicago and let them come together and then let them meet and have meetings to discuss this. Then approach the mayor about how much the resources that they would need to really research it and investigate it to put forth a real number of what should be given to African Americans. But I believe that we should first start with the American government on a federal level about reparations before we start on a small city level with local city governments. And I believe that we should take our case first and foremost before the United Nations.
Well, I will say, first of all, the United Nations doesn't define American policy, right? Recently, we have ceded a lot of control because of the COVID pandemic, and it's not making the news. But America defines American policy, and America is stratified in that you have municipal policy, you have county policy, state policy, and federal policy. I am shocked that you are against having discussions get reparations. I have problems with this for very different reasons. You saw California spend a bunch of money for many years on a reparations panel, which went to cronies, which went to people inside politics getting a check. My real question is, who's getting the $500,000 to sit around and talk about ideas? Why on earth would it cost so much money to have some meetings? The truth is this is just payola to friends. But more importantly, you look at in Chicago where you have illegal entrants actually living in police stations right now. They're talking about changing policies because Governor Abbott, the governor of Texas, has busted about 20,000 illegal entrants into the Chicago area. Mind you, Texas itself gets more than 20,000 a week, and we've been told by the Democrats that it's not a problem, that it's not a crisis. But now all of a sudden, when you have them being shipped to New York and Chicago and Philadelphia, it has become a crisis. Quanell, they're going to spend about $300 million in Chicago to provide for 20,000 immigrants. You want to do that math, that's an incredible amount of money. They're spending billions in the city of New York. They are spending so much money to house illegal entrants. You've also had the Biden administration fast track these entrants from Venezuela's ability to get work visas in this country, but you're having less than 5% of the immigrants that are eligible for those actually applying for.
But we can't
So the truth is, why aren't we doing more for American citizens, black, white, Asian,
reparations would do exactly what America should have done hundreds of years ago.
But why not take that $500,000 and do some stuff for black people?
America agreed to pay reparations at the beginning, at the end of slavery. They said 40 acres and a mule. That was promised to us. Okay. It was never given. So now we're dealing with a little over 400 years of an unpaid debt, and we need to discuss interest plus penalties on that debt that they've never paid. The same way when poor people don't pay a bill, they get interest plus penalties. Same thing with taxes. When you don't pay your taxes on time, there's interest plus penalties. Well, guess what? America has to be looked into and investigated thoroughly of that 400-year-old debt of interest plus penalties when you promised reparations and did not give it.
Okay, but
and let me say this to you, Charles.
Why are they spending $500,000 to have a meeting?
Do you realize that the United States government paid slave masters reparations reparations in the South when they lost their slaves as a form of paying them for the loss of property? They paid slave masters
I think maybe we're having
reparations.
a different argument.
So
right?
listen to me. If they paid slave masters reparations for the loss of property when slavery ended, how can we say that black people do not deserve that? But I agree with you on this.
I mean, you're literally arguing about something that wasn't said.
California did spend money.
Lots of money.
Lots of it, and wasted it in this study of reparations.
Right.
And I agree with you. Too much corruption is involved with those quote-unquote panels needing $500,000
just to
investigate this. You don't need that much money to investigate if we get reparations, how it's be given to us. I'm against individual payments. I believe the worst thing we can do with reparations is give out individual payments. That's not going to help black people. We suffered collectively as a unit during slavery. If reparations is to be paid, and it should be paid, well then let the payment be to the collective to uplift the collective, not individual payments. Because with the mindset we're in, we will give the money back in 1 week to the very people that gave it to us. So how is that reparations? We're just giving it back to them.
Just in the last segment, you were saying that the NFL shouldn't have trans cheerleaders because it would offend the majority of the fans of the NFL.
I said they shouldn't force it on fans.
In California, what they found was the majority of white and Latin voters rejected the idea, were against the idea of reparations. So then Gavin Newsom, the governor out there, who I think will actually run for president in this next election when Biden steps down, he abandoned it, right? And it was based on, it was an electoral possibility. So, but they spent millions and millions and millions of dollars studying that. And it all went to lobbyists and cronies and friends of the politicians.
But white folks don't get a vote when it comes to reparations.
We are talking about...
When it comes to reparations, white folks should not get a vote on whether we receive it or not.
That's not how America works. But that's not what I'm talking about.
The Latino community should not get a vote about whether black folks should receive reparations or not.
Why not take that $500,000 and make Chicago's horrible schools that aren't educating young, poor black children worth a damn? Chicago streets that are so incredibly unsafe for young, poor black children. Why not spend that on making their lives a little better? And
why don't we take the $1 trillion we gave Ukraine and do the same exact thing for all of Americans?
It was hundreds of billions.
So let's take those hundreds of billions of dollars that we use to give Ukraine and put it back into America.
Illegal entrance in Chicago and spend it on Chicago. The truth is, this is just payola. This is bullcrap, right? And what they need to do is talk about real solutions for black Americans to give them more hope and more opportunity.
Justice, and it should be paid.
Well, I mean, you can say it should be paid, and I'm not saying it shouldn't. What I'm saying is we need to stop wasting money on stupid-ass commissions and actually do something.
Organs for freedom? In round 3, the gloves are off as people try to get out of the system faster than normal.
What a disaster.
You're a disaster.
This is a disaster.
You can't be ready for every little disaster, but you can prepare for a big one. Make an emergency plan today.
Welcome inside the black box.
So you guys ready to have some fun?
Forget the acting studio. I'm here with you guys.
Creativity will find its way. It doesn't matter what the ethnicity is.
Television and movies are the mediums of stereotypes.
Just because we all have the same color don't mean we have the same experience.
Your uniqueness is your greatness.
Welcome inside the black box.
Every Monday on Fox Soul. TGIF.
Lil Wayne was not pleased with the reveal of his wax figure. He tweeted, "Sorry, Wax Museum, but that bleep ain't me."
Live and interactive.
Brittany T said, "That ain't Lil Weezy, that's Lil Asthma."
Hold on, Carla. You gotta see what Poppy said. Hell, the wax figure looks cleaner and better than the real Lil Wayne.
Serving up all the tea.
You so messy, Q. You are.
Join the chat on Fox Soul.
Y'all don't make the comments. I just read them, honey.
Oh, God.
What do you think the most bougie state in the United States is?
Is this black bougie or white bougie? There's a difference.
McMillan and Morrow.
I'm not black bougie. I'm trying to. You just bougie. I'm just too poor.
Every Thursday.
Listen, if I had more money, I would be so bougie.
You black bougie adjacent. All your friends are black bougie.
Exactly.
On Fox Soul.
I'm in the same boat.
I'm living vicariously through them.
In our main event, ethics be damned. Why a proposal may let some prisoners exchange organs and bone marrow for freedom. Here's Charles Big Angry Adams.
Yeah, Quanell, when you pitched this story about prisoners in Massachusetts, there's a discussion about it in the legislature, and there's been a bill proposed to give them the ability to shorten their time by months or a year in prison by participating in organ donation or bone marrow transplant. I see a huge difference between the two because obviously a bone marrow transplant is just taking some bone marrow and you give it to somebody, whereas an organ, whether it's a kidney or a portion of your liver, there's not many organs you can donate while you're alive. It is completely different, but it also impugns it sounds like a dystopian science fiction horror story, but it also talks about personal liberty and the reason people go to prison, to pay debts to society. The bone marrow thing is actually a fantastic idea. I lost an aunt of mine that I was particularly close to at 5 years old because she couldn't find a bone marrow for aplastic anemia because we didn't have a registry in this country in the 80s, and she died a horrifying death because there was not a donor that matched. I think that the bone marrow actually gives prisoners the opportunity to give to their state, to give to their community, to give to their nation. And if they do that, they absolutely should be rewarded. And then when you talk about individual liberty, if someone says, you know what, I'm miserable in this prison, I'm dying, our prison system is so horribly unsafe. It is a global embarrassment that prisoners don't go to be reformed. They go to either be victimized or to victimize, right? But it gives people the opportunity, hey, you can have this kidney if I can go home. I think it makes a lot of damn sense.
Well, let me say this to you, Charles. I have no problem with those who are child molesters, rapists, serial killers, armed jackers, and car robbers who kill people in cold-blooded murder. Let me say this. If you're a rapist and you want to shorten your time, okay, no problem. Men who have lost their testicular testosterone from testicular cancer, we got something for you. We going to the penitentiary. And any child molester, we're going to let him give us his testicles. And we're going to take them and put them in a cold ice box.
I don't think we're doing testicle transplants.
Oh, yeah, we are, baby. Okay. And so we're going to take his testicles. We're going to give it to the man who had cancer, whose testicles ain't working no more. We got a gift coming. And we'll cut your sentence by a year or 2 years. You don't need them testicles no more anyway. So when you get out the joint, you won't be able to have your thing stand up at attention because you won't have no testicles. If you're a serial killer, oh, ain't nothing wrong with you giving a kidney transplant. Ain't nothing wrong with you giving a liver transplant. In fact, how about you consider a heart transplant and we'll give you a pacemaker because your heart rotten as hell anyway. So those who like to rob people and do home invasions, kick open their doors, if you want to shorten your sentence, well then look, you want to give a heart transplant, give your kidney or your liver, well come on, talk to us. We'll put you on dialysis. So you'll get out of penitentiary, but you'll be on dialysis. You won't be robbing nobody else, baby.
Well, I know you want to make a joke about this, right?
Hell no, I'm being for real.
But, I mean,
I'm being absolutely serious.
We're not transplanting testicles. I guess you could transplant your eyes, or there's some other organs.
No, some countries have experimented with testicular transplants.
But
yes.
Anyhow, there are crimes that aren't eligible for it in the proposed bill. It's not a huge amount of time being cut off, and at the end of the day, especially the bone marrow transplant database, the more people you get participating, the more children's lives you can save from cancer. And the thing is, if you give, I don't think it should stop here, right? I think we should have far more options for those that are in prison for drug use, drug dealing, for nonviolent victim crimes.
Now that's a separate discussion.
To have the ability to contribute to society in some other way and get back to society quicker.
Nonviolent offenders.
Okay, so you're all
That's
for
a separate discussion for nonviolent offenders.
But we have,
and those who are drug addicts, who are drug addicts who shouldn't be in prison, we should have an exit program for them.
There are so many people in prison right now that shouldn't be there.
But them cold-blooded killers?
In fact, it is overwhelming.
Let's have a special system for them.
But it's overwhelming numbers of African-American men who are being oppressed by the system. And I'm not saying the fear is that people will be bullied into it. The fear is that people will be pressured into it, and we absolutely would have to have safeguards to do that.
If a child molester is bullied into giving a donation.
Okay.
I ain't got no problem with that.
I get that you want to cut off.
That freak wasn't thinking about bullying no baby. He wasn't so concerned about bullying a child.
Here's one of the problems. You have a fundamental misunderstanding. That most rapists and child molesters are driven by a desire to harm and control, not a sexual desire. So merely robbing them of their testicles doesn't solve the problem.
Well, let's find out.
But here's what, I don't disagree, but here's what we're not doing right now is we are not getting them any psychological or psychiatric counseling, and there is a tremendous recidivism rate
no such thing.
for child molesters and rapists.
If you like to rape and you're a predator that likes to rape children,
I agree.
There's only one type of counseling.
But why
one type of counseling.
But if they have the
there's a piece of ground to hold
But if they have the opportunity to save lives through bone marrow donations, and I don't care any kind of prisoner, and they have an opportunity to volunteer for it and get back to their families, serve their debt to society, and it's overwhelming. Our prisons are filled with black men, some of them fairly, some of them unfairly.
Non-violent
so why
offenders.
wouldn't you want?
Yes.
Why wouldn't you want them? Well, actually, I mean, violent offenders are overwhelmingly African-American male criminals.
And let me tell you about violent offenders, man. I don't have a lot of compassion for them either.
Okay.
Because you run around there shooting children.
Okay.
You're gunning down babies and killing
mothers.
This
isn't arguing.
You go rob a woman in the parking lot and blow her brains out for her purse.
Another mechanism.
I ain't got no damn mercy for you.
I'm not talking about mercy. I'm just talking about giving them another mechanism to pay their debts to society.
I agree.
Which will then, in turn, let someone live.
I agree.
Okay. So, well, you didn't agree before.
No, I do agree.
Okay.
Mr. Killer, you killed the mother for her purse? Okay, come on, we're going to sign you up for this bone marrow donation. Well, how much time I'm going to get off my, we'll give you 6 months. So we'll sign off 6 months.
Well, that's actually the kind of time they're talking about.
So we'll give you 6 months, and come on, give us some bone marrow. And in fact, how many you kill? Oh, you killed 3. We'll give you 2 months. Come on, give us some bone marrow. Look, I'm not with anything that releases cold-blooded violent offenders back in those streets. Okay, I don't care how much bone marrow we give.
We've had a discussion about it. I am a drug war abolitionist. We've had a discussion about the drug war. You are pro-drug war. You are pro-law enforcement.
No, I'm not.
You've said it over and over again.
No, that's the lie that you want to say that I'm saying.
Okay, then what's your position on the drug war?
The drug war is stop locking up poor people who should be receiving treatment.
Okay.
So that's the drug war was targeting black people.
That's what I've been saying for years.
It was never give us treatment. Okay. Like with this fentanyl problem in America, they want to give them treatment.
But now we can agree. Let people donate bone marrow and get out of prison. We agree?
Non-violent offenders, yes.
Okay, it's fine. It's nice to agree once.
And cut off a little more time for them, non-violent offenders. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, let me say this to you. I'm going to start where I left off. There are many men in America who have suffered from cancer. These are good men, God-fearing men, law-abiding citizens. And if you talk to any man that's had prostate cancer, who has had testicular cancer, they have problems being the normal men that they once were. Some of these guys in prison, if they make a donation of some of their bodily organisms, they can help that man regain his stamina, regain his resilience, and be a blessing to his wife or his girlfriend like he used to be in many so ways. I wouldn't care nothing about no freak child molester getting out of prison soon. I don't care how much bone marrow he give. I don't care nothing about no serial killer, no cold-blooded murderer donating bone marrow or anything else getting out of prison soon.
I want to start with a very difficult conversation that we had about reparations. A lot of Americans, especially African Americans, need to wake up to the reality that Democrats are using this as a vehicle to grab your votes without giving you anything substantive in return. And I'm not saying the Republican Party is a better option, right? Because they have proven themselves to be disconcerted with communities of color for decade after decade after decade. But we don't need to believe the lies that are an excuse to give more money to cronies to study things. That's just handing out money to everyone other than the people that they should be handing out money to. When Quanell was antagonistic towards a trans cheerleader, hey, it's not, you make fun of people, have a good laugh, but you can't use the argument that bigots should define policy, because bigots define policy for a very long time in this country, and it's time that we open ourselves to more inclusivity.
That's it for the Face-Off on Fox Soul. We'll catch